Welcome, everyone. Have you ever done everything right in your business, followed the strategies, posted the content, launched the offer, and still felt like something's just off? Like you're putting in the work, but the results don't match the effort. Or worse, burning out doing things that don't feel like you. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. And no, you're not doing it wrong. You might just be building your business in a way that's out of sync and with how you're uniquely designed to attract clients, create income, and grow with ease. And that's what today is all about. This session is going to help you unlock how your human design can guide you to make more money and call in aligned clients by being more of yourself, not less. So here's what you can expect today. Today, we're going to talk about how your human design type influences how you create wealth, how to attract clients in a way that feels natural, aligned, and magnetic. What common habits or strategies might be draining your energy or blocking momentum, and simple shifts you can start making right away to build a business that feels as good as it grows. For those who don't know me, I'm Diana YK Chan, business coach and growth strategist, LinkedIn top voice, 11-time LinkedIn learning instructor, and 7-time UN speaker. I help coaches, consultants, and service-based entrepreneurs build influential personal brands, create scalable offers, and grow their revenue with high-ticket sales and aligned strategies. My clients have gone on to build 6- and 7-figure businesses, launch sold-out group programs, land brand partnerships, and close 5-figure speaking and coaching gigs, all by learning how to position their value and build their business in a way that honors how they want to work. But even with all of that, I wasn't immune to building in ways that didn't fully fit me. I'm a projector in human design, and for years I operated like a generator, doing all the things, constantly pushing and hustling through strategies that drained my energy. That changed when I learned more about my human design from Melissa Leithwood the last several years. She helped me understand how I'm meant to lead, attract, and serve, not by doing more, but by owning my presence, my clarity, and my power to bring people together. So since then, I've designed my business around what energizes me: hosting curated retreats, masterminds, and events, building deep relationships, bringing the right people into the right room to unlock aligned growth. And the result? More ease, more alignment, and yes, more money. So that's why I'm so excited today to share with you Melissa. She doesn't just teach human design, but she helps you live through it in your business. So if you don't know your human design yet, feel free to get that from a chart that we sent out earlier. I'm going to put this in the chat as well for those who don't know their human design. If you do, please share it with us in the chat as well. Share with us your human design type. So about Melissa. Melissa is a human design guide and intuitive business mentor who helps guide coaches, creatives, and entrepreneurs align their business with their energy so that they can attract clients and generate income without burnout. Her specialty is helping people bridge human design with practical business strategies so that they can grow by honoring who they truly are. She's guided many business owners through deep energetic clarity, and today she's here to help you apply that wisdom on how you grow, show up, and sell in a way that finally feels right. So if you're excited about this, type in a +1. Let's give us some love and support to Melissa, and let's welcome her to the stage here. Welcome, Melissa! Woohoo!
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. We're so excited to have you here. You've been meeting many of my community members and clients already, so I'm just so excited now finally officially have you as a guest speaker here today. Why don't we start off a little bit about your journey, and then we'll dive into this topic here. Can you share a little bit about your journey into entrepreneurship and what led you to human design?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I started my entrepreneurship journey in 2011. It seems like so long ago. It was actually when I was doing a PhD in business. That's how we met at the Ivy School of Business. and it was in business strategy. I, at the time, was going through some health challenges, and I went to see a naturopathic doctor because I was like, the medical system didn't have answers for me. And the naturopathic doctor, she really helped me and opened my like world up to like hormonal health, and she helped to really kind of see what was going on, as us projectors tend to have more sensitive energy bodies because we don't have that consistent function that, say, a generator would have. But what was really like amazing was that she had recognized something in me at that time. And at the time, I didn't know, that I was a projector, but essentially I was invited, because the projector strategy is to be, invited into something. And she at the time knew I was doing, my business PhD. And she was like, would you come and help us with, our social media and our strategy and just give us some advice? And I felt so seen. And that really launched my entrepreneurship journey into consulting and coaching. And now that, I'm reflecting, knowing human design, it was actually such a beautiful alignment. And that ended up being a practice where I served like 1,500 wellness clinicians within the span of, say,
Oh, is it just
19,
me?
18,
Melissa got this.
when
Oh, frozen?
I ended up going
Oh no.
into
Is that the internet?
um, full-time entrepreneurship. And it was in
Yeah, the
2000,
audio.
and I would say five, no,
Is your internet a little unstable there, Melissa, I think? Did you hear?
wired in. So let's see how we'll do. Oh, it's me. Is it me? Okay. Huh.
Oh, we're
Good.
good now. I think we're good. We're
All
good
right,
now.
let's try. Because I'm hardwired in, but if it changes, then I can switch to Wi-Fi. So in 2020, I discovered human design. And it was a time in my life when I had been really, at the time, feeling a lot of anger and burnout. And I didn't know why. Now, as I can kind of like self-reflect, I was doing a lot of things out of alignment, because as one does, you can get caught up in a lot of like what society defines as success, right? And what you should be doing. And I ended up kind of going on that hamster wheel of trying a lot of different strategies and templates and things that other people were saying worked for them, but it wasn't working for me. And so I ended up feeling a lot of bitterness and a lot of burnout. And, I went from feeling like in my business that freedom, like when you first start your business, you're like, oh my gosh, yes, this is like the freedom to do whatever I want, right? And then eventually, when I started to feel that burnout, I was like, I wanted freedom from my business. Like it was so different. And that was the first kind of key, kind of like signal that something was off. And I was with my kids at the time, who were both under 3, and I was scrolling social media as one does, and it was Instagram, and I came across human design. There was a post that sounded just like me, and I was like, oh my God, that sounds like me. And I looked it up, and sure enough, I was the projector type. And from there, I had to know everything inside and out. And then I went on the whole journey of like going and studying at the official School of Human Design for 4 years, and really investing in, I guess you would say, like embodying my type, and then being able to coach others through that. So that was really my journey into it.
Amazing. So, what would you say to someone who's either skeptical or unsure how human design could really impact their business or growth? And personally, if you can share a little bit an example of a story, how has it helped you to build with more ease and success?
Yeah, I would say, you know, first thing is you get your chart, right? And you start to look at what it is that are the codes that are in there. So like most people, you'll go to an app or you'll kind of Google search, what do these things mean? Or if you want to shortcut that whole process, you go to somebody who's a, a certified reader, and they can take you through that process to really see your chart. Because in the beginning, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Like, feel free to put it in the chat when you first saw your chart. Like, did you understand it? Probably not. It was like, what is this? What are these numbers? What are these centers? It kind of looks like there's a human in there, but I don't know what it all is and what it means for me. And so it can be met with some skepticism. But then what happens is there's this beautiful process of really feeling seen. The more that you learn about your chart, about how your energetic body works, you start to feel validation. And that's what happened for me. When I learned I was a projector, I was like, first of all, I love assessments. But also I was like, well, what is this? And so naturally, with like all my education and PhD and all the things, it was just like all of that. I was like, I don't know, is this true or not true? But then when you start to really have it validate you, you're like, holy, how does this know? Like, how does this speak the truth that I've always known inside? But at some point, I kind of just lost that connection, maybe because of other people's agendas and society's expectations and all the noise that kind of, piled on. And so for me, it was, overcoming that skepticism was just really diving into the experimentation and the self-study aspect of, okay, you know, this is giving me something. This is releasing some weight off of my shoulders. And it's bringing me into my inner truth and my inner knowingness, something that I knew, but for some reason I had lost it along the way.
Thank you for sharing that. It's really good to know. So let's move into this topic here. Everyone wants to learn more about the human design. So why don't we, first of all, let's dive into like an overview first. We might dive deep here. Is walk us over quick overview of the 5 core human design types and what they each mean energetically, so that we can get an overview for everyone here.
Okay, amazing. Okay, so we've got the 5 types. The first, which is the majority of the population, which is about 70%, are what are called generators and manifesting generators. Within the business translation of human design, which is called BG5, that would be called the builders and the express builders. So what are these types? The 70% of the population that has consistent access to their energy function. Why do we call them builders and express builders in the business language? Because they serve a beautiful purpose, which is to build our world. They have that consistent access to their energy function because they're here to birth projects and new creations. That's a creation energy. So oftentimes, a lot of you here are manifesting generators and generators. And so you might be wondering, well, what's the difference, right? So the difference would be generators, they have more of a step-by-step process. So it's more like very methodical. And that energy, it's consistently there, but it needs to work from a place of satisfaction, right? Generators are here to make money through satisfaction. That means, now, first of all, that doesn't mean that you can't burn out, right? Because if you're working in frustration, which is the unaligned, not self-signature of a generator and a manifesting generator. If you're working in frustration, you're not going to have the energy there for the projects and the creations that you're here to, birth out into the world or bring out into the world. However, if you're operating from a place of satisfaction, what ends up happening is your aura turns on, like the way your energetic body works, right? Like we have a heart field, we have an aura that extends about 2 arms lengths out, beyond us, which is why when you run into somebody and their vibe kind of feels off, That's the aura kind of speaking, right? You can kind of get that from that level. Now, what ends up happening is that manifesting generator and that generator aura, when it's working from deep satisfaction, it literally pulls people and the world in. It acts like a magnet, which is like, first of all, as a projector, hello, I have some envy there. But also, it's amazing because basically you're bringing life in to respond to. And from that place, you get to make your internal decisions on, is this something that I have energy for or not? The challenge is when you're a burnt out projector, you're not going to have energy to, do those things that you love to do. And the world won't bring in the things that you're here to respond to because there's just no energy for it. So coming back to that difference between the generator and the manifesting generator, right? We just talked about that generator type and kind of peppering in how it also applies to the manifesting generator. Now, the distinction is with the manifesting generator is that there's a quicker process. That's why we add that manifesting piece, because in the chart, there's a connection between that energy function, which is this square, and it connects up to the throat, which is the center of communication and action. And so manifesting generators, they tend to be the types that they move, not always, depending on what else is going on in the chart, but I would say 95% of the time, they love to be the multi-passionates. They're the ones who kind of dip into projects and move out of projects. They pick something up, they put it down, and then they're over to the next thing. And then all of a sudden, they've got 30 projects started. Roseanne, you're laughing. She's like, that's me. So they pick up the things, right? They put them down because they're like, yeah, I have energy for this right now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, it's not there. And they're like, oh, but that's cool. I want to do that. And then they go and they do it, right? Now, for the 5%, what, of manifesting generators that don't feel that's true for them, the nuance there is that they have that, but in a different way. So they may not be moving between all the different like projects, but they have a quicker process with the project that they're working on. And within the project they're working on, they're doing a lot of things for that project. So there's always with the manifesting generator, there is that that quickness that's there. It's a design of doing, right? Now, we're going to move on to the projector type. So the projector type is 20% of the population, right? And don't put this in a hierarchy. 70% doesn't mean like, oh my God, I'm common, I'm not special. No, we are each one of us a once in a lifetime, unique, cosmic event according to our design, okay? So projectors, the 20% of the population, we have a different process. So we are what would be called non-energy function types. What does that mean? It means that we don't have consistent access to energy. However, that means that we are here to be wise about energy. We're here to learn about how to be efficient with energy. We're here to know how to guide that energy, meaning we're actually built to guide the 70% of the population that has energy, the generators and the manifesting generators, right? So in business language, the BG5 language, projectors are called the advisors. So like Diana and I, and a few other of the projectors here on the call, I think there's about 5 of us in total, we have what's called a focused and penetrating aura. What does that mean? It means that we're designed to literally plug into the love, identity, and direction center of the other. Now, that's because we're really designed for one-on-one, for partnership. Some of us are even designed for small group. And some are considered alpha projectors or alpha advisors, which can guide large organizations from the outside as consultants. So what is our gift? We're here to really make money by being recognized. So, for example, Diana was like, I recognize Melissa as that person who has the depth of knowledge, and not only the knowledge, but also the embodied wisdom and leadership to be able to guide her. So she invited me in, not only for herself personally, but here to be with you today, right? So the way we are designed to make money is to be recognized first, and then we receive an invitation, right? And what we do from that point is we're able to wait, sit with our inner knowingness, which is called our inner authority in human design. And each one of us has there are like different types, right? Some of you may have the same. About 50% of the population have an emotional decision-making process. So they need to ride out a wave, kind of take time, feel into it. They're the ones who will say, "Oh, I'll get back to you," right? Whereas a lot of others who have the moment to moment, inner authority, they can feel that in their gut intuition or their gut instinct. So for us, we wait. We wait to get that internal feeling or knowingness of, yeah, this is the correct invitation. I've been recognized, and now I can use the energy correctly. So that's the 20% of the population. Now, manifestors, you are 9% of the population. You are the designs for initiation. You're called the initiators in the BG5 business translation language, right? You're here almost like the architects of the world, where the innovators, the ones who initiate others into action. However, there's a caveat, and a very important one, which is that you're here to inform first. And why is that? Because with your very strong aura, which is what would be called a very potent and closed aura, and that doesn't mean it's negative at all. It's closed because it's here to not have anybody mess with its business, with its mission, with what it wants to bring out in the world or what it wants to say. A lot of manifestors will say the part that no one is saying or everyone is thinking. And so the initiators, the manifestors, are often the ones that are like, will say the thing, and then everybody's like, it comes into the global consciousness or it comes into that collective consciousness, and then they can move, right? And they can get the people on board, but they have to inform first, meaning they say, like, I'm thinking about this thing, and they kind of put it out there to the group or on their socials before they launch and initiate the thing that they want to do. So that way others don't feel steamrolled, right? Or bulldozed over. And so that they can get on board and be the support, for the manifestors, for the initiators. So that's how you're designed to make money, through informing and initiating. And of course, we have the 1%. And I know even within our community, even though a few of them may not be on here today, I would be remiss if I didn't mention them. The 1%, which are the reflectors. So the reflectors, they are kind of like I always say this, they're like the best community and health and wellness kind of like committee member type people, because they're the ones that are here to reflect back to us the health of the community. They're here to reflect back to us what's going on in the group or in the collective. And so what happens is their aura, it acts a little bit like Teflon. They're here because they're not here to absorb, even though they're so open in their design, they're not here to absorb everything, because that can make them really they're really sensitive, so that can really weigh on them. So their aura is designed to be a little bit like Teflon, in the sense that they can be like mirrors and reflect back, so they can understand the energies that are moving through them. But especially once they become aware, they'll learn that they're not here to take them on. And so having a reflector in your midst is such a beautiful thing, because they're the ones that they'll oftentimes pinpoint like the thing that you're not noticing, or they'll bring you into a new type of an awareness. So they're really designed to make money through that reflective process, through that process of being able to identify, okay, these people in the community are really happy, or no, they're not so engaged. Okay, you know what? I feel like they've been chattering and talking about this. Let's get them more engaged by doing X, Y, and Z. So a lot of reflectors find themselves in the kind of community consulting space, and they really do thrive in that industry and in that role. So that's the brief overview. I know it was brief and it sounded more in depth. Truly, it was brief.
This was so good. I'm going to check with the audience before moving questions. I want to check in with all of you. What is resonating? What are you curious about? I still have more questions for Melissa here, but I just want to check with the audience because I know that was like a big overview here. But one thing that resonated with me being a fellow projector, Melissa, I'm an extrovert, but I love people, and I find that I like what's changed for me this year is learning to switch from going to doing like a lot of large group type of networking events to running more small, intimate group events, and I think that has really helped me from a energy standpoint and better to build deeper relationships with people that I meet. So that's been like a huge shift for myself since learning that I'm a projector.
Yeah, for sure. And that also, we talked about how that related to your profile line. As a fourth line, you're really here to be that natural networker. You're here to be that person who circulates opportunities and doesn't hoard them. Like that's kind of, what society has kind of put a negative spin on the networker, but as the opportunist, right? But no, actually, the highest expression of that fourth line in your profile, in your what's called your public role, like who you're designed to, show up as the character in life, is as that person who circulates opportunities, because a part of that coding that's in you is to be really heart led. Everything is with heart, right? Now, on the flip side of that is there's a vulnerability to burnout. But the more that you are recognized and you're seen, the less likely that's to happen. And as you mentioned, you're like, I've done so many events this year and I have felt so nourished. I haven't felt tired, right? Compared to what you were doing before.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I know we're going to touch into each type of how each type is designed to create income and attract clients because that's their main topic. We got a
Yeah.
couple of questions here. Katie asked, can you speak more about the numbers and how that tap into one's design? And Alan's question is how to show up more in alignment with human design. Is that too depth for us to go through? Because there's so many different variations of it. Is there?
We could talk about the profile lines.
Mm-hmm.
So, because the second question related to how to show up in alignment with your design, this is where we go into depth into a chart, right? Because there are so many pieces, because you are literally unique. There's not like a template that can be kind of like layered, smacked on. But with the profile lines, because they are part of the 70% of your energy in your chart, right? So if we were to look at the chart and say, what are the most important pieces, right? Even for your own self-study, I would be looking at what would be called your life work theme, also known on the chart that you have, called the incarnation cross. So why? Because 70% of your energy in your chart is within that section. So you'd think that 70%, well, you'd want to pay attention to it. Now, within that is the profile lines. That's your public role. That's the character you play on the stage of life. And that's how other people are naturally going to see you. Now, there are 6 lines, but there are 12 profiles. I'm going to tell you about the 6 lines because it doesn't matter if you're a 1-3, a 3-6, a 3-5, just knowing the 1 through 6, you'll be able to, work through what that means for you. So the first line is the authority. The first line is known as the investigator. And in the BG5 business translation, it's known as the archetype of the one who can stand as the authority. Why is that? Because you have this natural, investigative kind of spirit about you. And you don't like to build a house on a shoddy or shaky foundation. So naturally, you're the one who's looking always to build that solid foundation. And so you go on this adventure, typically when you have that first line, of really deep diving and digging into something like a dog on a bone. When you first, when you first identify the thing that you're like, yeah, I'm going to go and research that because I want to have a solid foundation of it, right? And through that process, you learn so much, right? So much that you end up becoming what could be an authority on the subject, an expert, right? And this is where you get to utilize that in your marketing and in your messaging. Now, the second profile line, which is the 2, this one is called the natural. What does it mean? It means you're the one who has the natural talents and the gifts, the one who tends to kind of just pick things up in the sense of like, when people say, how do you know how to do that? And you're like, I just kind of know, right? This is the second line, the one who naturally kind of just figures it out. You can buy IKEA furniture and not really need to follow the instructions because you kind of just figure it out. So that natural can be really magnetic and used in the marketing and the messaging of your brand, right? Where you're just like the one that just knows. It's like that natural talent, right? And showcase that. Now, the third line, this is me as well. The third line is the trial and error, is the experimenter, is the pioneer, the one whose mess is their message. They tend to go through a life process where there's a lot of bumping into things. There's a lot of tinkering and figuring it out. Oh, that didn't work. Let me go try over here, right? Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this. Let's try that. And then add on that, if you're a manifesting generator, woo, you're like Hot Wheels. It just goes, right? So that's the third line. And with that in your marketing and your messaging, that's all about taking all the mess and making it your message. It's like your lived experience gets to be the lesson for somebody else, right? Okay, now the fourth line. The fourth line is Diana. This is great, right? We just spoke about this. So the networker, the opportunist, the one who's here to circulate opportunities, the one who brings the frequency to the room. If the frequency in the room she's in is not, vibing, she's going to create a room of her own and bringing everyone else in there. So the fourth line is very interesting to work with in business. The fourth line receives a lot of its clients through the warm and the hot leads. It's, I would say, a little bit more challenging for the fourth line to do anything that goes direct from cold market to sale. There needs to be much more of a focus on warming up that lead. And so something that really helped Diana and many other fourth lines that I've worked with is to bring them closer to you, create that intimacy, right? Collapse, collapse that space. So that way, and that can look like, for example, like moving into voice messaging, which is something Diana did brilliantly, moving away from texting and emailing, because what ends up happening is the frequencies that are in our voice, they don't translate that way, right? Each one of us in our human design, our unique frequencies translate through in person and through our voice. So right now you are receiving my design through my expression, through my voice. So this is the fourth line. The fourth line really gets to double down on that because it works so, so well for them. Now the fifth line is the one who's the messenger. It's also called the heretic on your, chart there. And so the messenger, why is that? Because anyone who has a fifth line, they have this gift of being able to universalize some kind of knowledge or information, and even to disrupt the status quo. So they're here to carry a message. A lot of creators with like the hundreds of thousands of followers on, socials tend to have a fifth line because they're the ones that the are creating that message. They tend to have that creator capability in them with creating content, messages that just kind of land, right? So if you have a fifth line, you can really utilize that in your branding and your marketing by identifying what is my story, right? Like Diana does this beautifully with her coaching on storytelling, like really doubling down on like, what is your story? What is your message? And getting that out there in a way that not only tells people about you, but also through hearing your story, it brings them some awareness about themselves, right? Like this is the beauty of storytelling, where we get to learn so much about, through that self-reflective process from hearing other stories. It's like, actually, that gave me so much, right? And that's the beauty of the fifth line. You do that naturally in your marketing and your messaging. Okay, now the sixth, the final line, the sixth line. I'm a sixth line. Diana's also a sixth line because you have two lines in your profile, right? Now, the sixth line is the leader. They're the ones that go through this process in life where they kind of go through this messy process from the age of 0 to 30, where they're learning a lot. They're actually functioning a little bit like third lines. They're doing some trial and error, but that gets them to a place from the age of 30 to 50 where they get to go into this inward process and reflect inside, like, what are the lessons here? And from that place of reflection, they get to lead with wisdom. They get to be those ones that people are like, they seem to know a lot. They've had a lived history, deep and rich. And they end up being the ones that are called the role models. So if you'll see it on your chart there, the sixth line will be called the role model. And within BG5 language, it's the leader. So that role modeling process is so like beautifully utilized within the coaching industry. If you are a sixth line, you're here to really like share your wisdom, your lived wisdom, because it's there to give something to your clients, right? Unlike the fifth line, where it takes some universal, wisdom that it's gained through its life process, the sixth line is sharing from an embodied place. It's role modeling. It's the energy of I go first and you see something in me and you want to come along and you want to learn from me, right? So really kind of doubling down on that sense of modeling self-leadership can be really great in marketing and in messaging. So these are the six lines. How did that work for you all? Did you feel something in there?
I love it. I want to check from the audience because I know it's a lot. Some people may have been lost. So I want to check with the audience what has become more clear about learning more about your human design and the lines now that we explained. I thought that was really good just to have high level. Even for me, you helped me reaffirm as well being a projector who is a connector
Yes,
and someone who loves to share wisdom and to be the guide for
yes,
others, which explains why I've been in this business for over a decade now. I love sharing stories and love sharing like live experiences.
yes.
And so what I'm hearing is the importance when you know your human design, your type, and your number is to really lean into that because that's your natural strength and aura, where how you can really attract, right, and magnetize the right people. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's yeah. So I'm curious, like that's the flip question here is what are maybe some of the common ways that entrepreneurs or coaches they may unknowingly like not where they're going against their design and how does that impact their feasibility, lead generation, or income, like when they're going against their design.
Yeah. So, for example, for the generator, the 70% of the population, right? Most of us here, what ends up happening is when you're going against your design, you are essentially going against your inner knowing, that gut instinct or intuition of what you have energy for. So you're going against that, which is going to lead you into a place of dissatisfaction, or what would be called frustration, because you've said yes to something that really your energy wasn't there for. That can lead to a lot of frustration, right? And eventually that can lead to manifesting generator burnout. For the projector, it would be saying, saying yes to an incorrect invitation, meaning you weren't recognized. Somebody was saying like, you know, like, hey, we need somebody to do this for free. And you're like, I want to be recognized. So like, I'll do it. Yes, yes, right? Like the people pleasing, over committing type of stuff, and not really having the energy for it there, then doing the thing, but because the invitation wasn't really recognizing you, all of a sudden you've like overused your energy, and now you feel like bitter, like, and unrecognized. So this would be like a signpost for being an unaligned invitation, right? For the manifester, it's that feeling of, well, I'm going to do this thing, but without the informing piece, right? All of a sudden you've announced, or you've not announced, that's the whole challenge, not announced, you're doing the thing, and people feel like they've been bulldozed over, right? People feel like, where'd that come from? And all of a sudden, that can lead to that signature of anger for the manifester, where it's like, why don't people get it? It's because they haven't been warmed up to it. They haven't been informed of the thing that's been, percolating, or that will be coming. And for the reflector, an unalignment would be feeling like a disappointment, right? It would be feeling like, oh, I'm in the wrong environment. I found myself in the wrong space, because they're reflective. So important for them to be aligned in the right space. So for them, and understanding, their environment is really, really key. A lot of times reflectors will go into a community only to find out that they're in the wrong community. But then they kind of can dip into over committing, people pleasing, or just kind of sticking it out, because their mind has told them that's what they should do, when really their body has said, no, you need to get out of here. And then ends up burning them out, and they can actually get pretty sick.
That's very interesting. You just reminded me, and maybe some of you can relate to this, is I have a lot of friends who do launches to run their business. Like they launch every quarter. And for the longest time, I also resisted to that model because I felt it was very draining for me. And
Yeah.
then when I switched over this model of, this ties into business model, how you operate your business here, to more invitations of events, like an invite only events, which is my strategy this year, it feels more natural and easy for me. Like I've been able to run 30 events this year. Technically, that's just another way of launch, but not the traditional way of launching, of bringing in hundreds and thousands of people into a webinar. And I think that's something I just understand why that was something so draining for me, is because I like more intimacy, connection, two-way conversations versus just me lecturing people. I wonder if anyone can relate to this, because a lot of you are in launch mode, trying to launch something. I think my big aha is like you get to define how you want to launch that aligns with your energetic blueprint.
Yeah,
Anyone can relate to that?
exactly.
Yeah. I think we
Your
have a oh, go
signature,
ahead. Yeah.
no, I was just going to say, your signature frequency is so important, because it's what people feel behind the words that are being said, right? And so what ends up happening is, if you're a burnt out projector and you're tired, and it's going to reflect in how you show up, then your business starts to feel like something that you have to do rather than something that you get to do, right? And when you're burnt out as a projector because you haven't been using your energy correctly, meaning in alignment with your design, then that translates through the whole business. And then people are like, I am not jiving with your energy, right? But when your energy is lit and it's like magnetic, it's like, oh my gosh, I want to be a part of that, right? Like this person's got a good vibe.
Absolutely. Lillian, I see your hands up. Do you have a question for Melissa?
I do. Hi, Melissa and Diana. Everyone. Thank you for doing this. This is really cool because I've been on this journey for self-awareness, self-understanding, and self-leadership for almost a decade now. And I'm just tuning into this kind of things, if you will. So my question, you might have answered already or addressed it. I might have missed it, but when it comes to the entering the information in the chart, what do you recommend if for me, I wasn't actually I don't know my birth time. I just know it's sometime in the morning. So I input something, but I wonder if there's a better way to, kind of tee up the number or something and use it to spit out better result for the chart. And the other thing is I actually have two birthdays, and that's just because my family used the lunar calendar. And then also I use the Gregorian calendar. So which date should I use if that even make a difference?
Yes. So you would use the Gregorian because the chart's algorithm has been based on that. The
Cool.
first question, so this is where, let's say, you can contact me because at the end we'll talk about that. But I have, so as a BG5, and someone was asking, what is BG5? It's the official school of human design for business, which was founded by the person who brought human design, Rauruhu. And so that's BG5, and it's kind of like the business translation of the spiritual awakening program, which is known as human design. And so the BG5 licensing software that I have has a birth time estimator. And so we're able to see the minute to minute changes that happen. So if you know the morning, then I will receive from that software like an output of the changes. And typically there aren't a lot of changes, but for that one person, sometimes it changes a minute later. So you never know. It's good to always have like that overview of the changes. So that way, then we would go through a process of asking questions that feel like your lived experience or what's true for you to really kind of pin down which one it would be. Cool.
Good. Before we dive in, I know some people want maybe if we can maybe go into either go deeper or we can maybe have some examples. Maybe some of the folks here, we want to go through some examples that are common types here. But I have a question around this is based on knowing your human design, what might it look like to design, let's say, your business in terms of your offer suite or business model based on your human design type?
Yeah. So each type has a specific way that it can design its business model. And also, there's a caveat within that too, because sometimes there's some nuances that can change it that go chart by chart, because we don't just look at type, we also look at some of the activations that are in the chart. But generally speaking, like the manifesting generators and the generators are designed typically for, it can be solo, it can be, well, solo less often, but most of the time it is a small group, let's say a group of like 3 to 5 people, right? Or large group, which could be 6 plus. So when you think about that, a lot of manifesting generators and generators that have come into my practice that I've coached, they end up doing group coaching. Group coaching they love, it tends to work really well for them, versus with the projectors, we're designed really well to work one-on-one. However, like I said, there's some caveats. So for example, like myself and like you, Diana, we have some coding in our chart where we can work really well with groups, small group. And also for you, you have that alpha projector where you're able to do large business consulting. So this is where we get into the nuances, right? But generally speaking, with the generator and the manifesting generator, that kind of like that working with groups can work really well in terms of a business model, being in that capacity of like coaching and teaching, right? And then also, of course, like if you're going to do one-to-one, you know, this is where you get to dive into your own what's called strategy and authority in human design, which is your inner, you know, your inner instinct, your inner intuition, your inner knowingness of like, is this really what I love, or am I just doing this because like everyone in the industry likes to do it? So for example, one of my clients, she's a manifesting generator, and she was following a model of group coaching with one-on-one, right? So people come into her like group coaching program, and then they get the opportunity to do one-on-one with her as an add-on, for example. And after a year of that, she was like, I hate doing one-on-one. She's like, I friggin' love group coaching because then everybody gets to be a representative. And, you know, when that person's learning about themselves and like 20 other people in the group are learning about themselves. And she's like, that just like lit her sacral, her energy function right up. And so she dropped her one-on-one and just went full on into group coaching, added more calls, group coaching calls, and then expanded her container and is like in love with her business model right now, right? So this is an example. For projectors, for us, like I said, you know, you may want to consider doubling down on one-on-one, right? Maybe that means raising prices because you're doing less group, right? And you're creating more intimacy, and maybe you're opening your Telegram or your WhatsApp and you're doing more of like a channel. That's worked really well even for myself. And I know, Diana, you do that too, right? Where it's like you can have that voice integration support, because a huge part of our gifts as projectors is to be there for the integration, is to be kind of that support, that one-on-one along the way. And you get to add value, and you get to have a fair energy exchange for that too, right? Now, for the manifestor, manifestors love to work solo. So they're designed with that closed aura that I had mentioned. They need their alone time, right? So building in that alone time into their business is really, really important. It's during that alone time where they're revitalizing themselves, and they're waiting for that creative urge that they're going to get, which is like, I have to speak something into the world, or I have to bring or birth something into the world, right? And so when it comes to their business model, they work really well seasonally. So there's a 7-figure manifestor that I coach, and she works in a seasonal cycle because she identified this. She really did not like the consistent cycle that she was in before. And of course, because that's what the whole industry was doing. And then when she realized her type, she was like, I really work well in cycles because I need that rest cycle. I need that alone time. I need that solo time. And doing that then like blew up her business in the next cycle because she was inspired and she was creative and she was ready to like speak her truth into the world. So, you know, this would be really great as sort of like a general piece of advice for the manifestor in their business. Make sure that you build in those rest cycles that you need. It's like, there's a great book, I'm sure many of us have read it, which is like 10x is better than 2x or something, right? Yeah, Dan Hardy. And so he, you know, goes out and interviews all these like amazing entrepreneurs and like big 8 and 9-figure earners. And one of the things that they commonly do is they build cycles into their yearly like business model, right? And I would say that would be so amazing for manifestors to look into. Also projectors, because we also, you know, obviously we're designed to rest like projectors, but differently than manifestors. Manifestors are really seasonal in their cycles too. So, oh, reflectors. because they're the 1%. I don't want to leave them out. Now, the Reflector business model is really interesting because they're designed to be around a lot of people. It's not so much that they need that solo time because their aura is like Teflon, right? But it's more that they need to be sampling a lot of different energy. So it's really great for them to honor the fact that they are designed to dip in and dip out of things, dip in, dip out, like just keep kind of like moving amongst different energies, different networks. Like they're the ones that can really thrive in being a lot of different masterminds or creating in their own business and their offerings, different masterminds where all of a sudden they can start to see the patterns and they can start to see what, what's kind of going on and be able to give that reflective wisdom to each space that they're in.
I love that. So what I'm hearing, the takeaway for us, what I'm hearing is to really check in what feels natural, easy, and in alignment, right?
Yeah.
We really need to check into that. Whatever we implement, it doesn't have to be that way. Like 6 months later, a year later, we can redesign the model to really more align into what fits for us, right? And it's really checking in on the energy and how we feel there.
Yes,
That's a
100%.
very important piece. I'm curious, like we could, and like I want to open the floor to questions here. Like you mentioned here, like some of you submitted their human design type profile. Like, what were some of the common maybe themes that you noticed? Like you were mentioning to me how there are maybe certain people coming into this room. I'm really curious if we want to dive deep into that, or if we want to use some examples to share, because I know people want to go in a little level deeper here.
Yeah, like so so I'm also within BG5, like the Human Design for Business, official school, certified as like their profit potential coach, right? So what does that mean? It means that within the chart, there are different areas where we have profit centers, or prosperity portals. And also places where we have money receptors. So where we get to create offers and, receive money from the wisdom that we have. So when I looked at all the charts, because I have charts here, there's no private information on them except for just like the charts. But something that I really noticed, for example, would be, gate 12. So trait 12. So anyone who has this in their chart, right? And there were many of you who did. This is the trait of having a very magnetic voice. So when your frequency, meaning when you're more aligned to your energetic design, so your human design, you're naturally going to remove the distortion and the other voices that you might have taken on, right? The noise in your energetic field. And when you can clear that by being more aligned to your human design, your voice is naturally so magnetic. So anyone who has that 12, for example, I just had in front of me right now, Ken, I don't know if he's on the call, but Ken has this. Who else? Aisha has this. There's many, many of you who have. If you have it and you see it, put it in the chat because this is a voice that needs to be podcasting. To really, because it's so, it naturally, this voice carries so much more frequency and it really resonates very strongly. So anyone who has that 12, I'm always like, are you podcasting? Do you have your own podcast? Are you being invited on podcasts? Because this is a great way to attract leads in. This is a great place to tell your story. Like that 12, which comes off of the communication and action function, which is that throat center in your design, that's here to really speak its truth into the world. And people naturally, they're ready to listen. Like this is a voice that commands more listening. So my gosh, like use it in your favor, right?
Yeah.
So
Melissa, could we, some of them are lost, so we're to look at. First of all, I just want to preface this is that there's so many details that we're not able to go into detail because human design is like so in detail. Like today, you're really getting like what we call the sampler of this because you are all so unique when you think about it, right? So there are a million variations of this. So we're really only able to cover what we call the introductory to it
yes.
For us to understand most of it. So I just want to make sure that we all align with that. But if we can make it, where do they look at? They look at their own chart. They all have their own chart. What's something that they can look at? Do you want to share a quick
Okay.
slide of it? We got to be careful of sharing like the charts just because sometimes people get lost when they see charts as well. Too many numbers, people get overwhelmed as well. That's the other feedback I get. That I'm so
Right.
lost.
Okay. So I think this is going to be more easy to grasp. Okay. So let's say right now you're looking at your chart, right? There are these shapes that you're seeing. Some of them look like squares and diamonds and triangles, right? Now, okay, are you following me there? Yes. Okay, cool. So some of those squares and triangles and diamonds have color in them, right? Like they're colored in with variety of different colors, but like could be yellow, green, brown, red, right? Okay, so now we're talking about the centers, right? That's what these shapes are. Now, some of those shapes have no color, right? So they're just kind of blank, they're white. If you printed on white paper, they would be white, right? Cool, we're following? Awesome. So those white centers, those are undefined. So those white centers are where your greatest wisdom for the other are, meaning the other, your potential clients and your current clients. So in the business language, in the profit, prosperity language of human design, that's where you're designed to make money. That's where you're going to school in life and you're learning. And that's through learning in those centers, that's where you're going to bring your wisdom as something that you can exchange with somebody else who says like, hey, you know a lot about X, Y, and Z, and I'll give you an example in a minute. I want to pay you because you know something I don't know, because you've gone to school in life in that area. So for example, right, if we're looking at, let's say, what most people, 69% of the population have undefined, have white, which is, and Diana, you can also speak to this because this is one of your main areas where you attract money, which is what's called the willpower center. It's a tiny little triangle on the right side of the chart next to a really big triangle. And that tiny little triangle, it's where we can master sales. It's where we can master self-esteem, right? It's where we go to school to like learn about these things. Because why? Because if we have it white, that's where we're also vulnerable to people pleasing, overcompensating, overcommitting to things, to manipulating or not knowing what's the right thing to say, to close a sale, for example, not being sure, having a lot of uncertainty around how can I bring that person to some closure. But what's so neat is, for example, Diana she's going to school in life for this, like many of us are, 69% of us are. And she has this potential in there to teach people about what it means to sell with service, right? Selling as a service, what it means to bring someone into closure for themselves around a sale. It's where she closes sales. And she's had to learn a lot about that in life. A lot of, right? Is that making sense to you, Diana?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you talk about learning how to sell, over 10 years ago, before even starting my business, I had to learn how to sell a 100K executive MBA program. And I did it. Brought in like 12 million sales to our school because of that, like sold it to 120 people.
Yes.
So that was how to learn to sell a high ticket program back in the day before I even started my business.
Yes, exactly.
That's interesting.
And so let's just say someone has this, like they were saying, some people said, well, mine is colored in, right? Like that would mean that's not where you're going to school in life and developing wisdom for the other. That's just naturally what you're transmitting. You were born with like this consistent access to willpower, to this gift that you have that 69% of the population doesn't have. So that's going to be a part of what is your natural strength, or naturally kind of, you know, where you maybe are even charismatic in. But where you're selling from is in your in those undefined white centers, because that's what you're learning. And each one of those centers, you'll notice, has a little number in them, right? And each one of those numbers represents what it is that you're learning about, what it is that you're here to offer as the product on the shelf to the other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Anyone have questions?
Oh, so sorry. Can I add something to that?
Yeah, add something. Yeah.
So, for example, anyone who has, because the majority of the group here has the top triangle of the chart completely, or it's white, right? Do you see that in your chart? If you do, like, I don't know, put a 1 or something, like, or give me a thumbs up. And that's where you're selling inspiration. Like, you're naturally designed to sell inspiration. So that's 72% of us who have that white or undefined. And that's where we're learning to sell from that place of like inspiration of, you know, what it is that's going on up here.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you happen to have a chart that we can share without disclosing name, or if there's anyone who want to be an example to go through, that we can share screen?
I can, if they
Yeah.
like.
Sangeeta, are you up for it? I just see you beside Melissa right now. Are you up if we use yours? I gotta ask for permission first, though. Yeah. Are you up for it, Sangeeta?
No
Yeah.
worries.
Sangeeta's up for it.
Okay.
Are you up for it?
Should
I
I?
don't want to go too in depth just because I know like one thing I want to really be careful of here is because there's so many variation. This purpose of the session is not meant to get for you to know everything. Because if you do, then Melissa doesn't have a job. So much to learn about human design. I find it fascinating. But what I do find was so helpful is just learning one, the types, the numbers. Like to me, that's already majority of that. And then you go into depth. Like, what are your blockers? What are the things that you got to be aware of? Right. And this is where I find it fascinating because even where, if, for example, using a Sangeeta as an example, it's going to also help me understand how I can best support you as your coach as well. So part of it is also understanding yourself, how you can best support your clients in a way.
Okay, amazing. So Sangeeta, this is yours. And you'll see there's no birth information. It's just your name, right? So we're not giving out any personal stuff there. Now, where you're designed to sell from, right? Where your prosperity portals are and your money receptors are. I'll show you those. So you've got right here this white undefined head function. That's where you're selling from in terms of inspiration. So you're designed to sell inspiration in some form, in maybe your content, your offers, right? You're here to be that person who inspires. Now, within that, you have a money receptor. That money receptor you'll see right here is this number called, whoops, there you go, the 63, right? Now, the 63 is called the gate of doubt. This is what you're learning about in life. You're learning about how to overcome self-doubt, not only for yourself, but when you can get to that place of learned wisdom, you're then able to sell this to the other. What does it mean to overcome self-doubt? What does it look like? Maybe that's a whole offering, right? Around how to overcome self-doubt because you've gone to school and life for it. Similarly, when we look down here at the conceptualization function, which is another portal, another place where you're selling from, this is about selling certainty, okay? And you have the money receptor here, which is the 17. And the 17 is about selling certainty as it relates to opinions. Everyone's got an opinion, but what's the right one, right? And a lot of people, especially in the coaching space, right? When they're looking for a coach, it's like they're looking to come into their own voice, into their own power. And sometimes they're like, I know everyone else's opinion, but I don't really know mine. What is mine? This is where you get to coach them through that process, right? And also to identify when maybe they're not so certain, and that's okay. How can we work through that, right? But this is what you're working with in life as a money receptor. Now, as contrast, you can see one of your strengths on your shop, or one of the strengths, which is like the shelf that supports your products that you're selling. That strength is the strength of the saleswoman in your case. So you're somebody who naturally, with that 44 right here, okay, you naturally know how to open people up to possibilities, because that 44, it's naturally has its own charismatic personality. It's able to really meet the other where they're at and to understand where they're at. And it extends right up, whoop, to that 26, okay? And that 26, as I was mentioning, Diana has it, that 26 is the trait of closing the sale. So the 44 opens people up, it meets them where they're at, right? And that 26 says, okay, cool. Now that they've opened up, opened you up to X, Y, and Z, I'm going to bring you to some closure on what it is actually that you want. And that's the trait that closes the sale, is the 26. And when you have this defined as a strength, sales can tend to be just something that's natural, something that you can naturally do. I don't know if that's true for you. I don't know you, but this is what I'm seeing, right? Now, the other place that you have your money portal is your emotional intelligence. It's undefined. Now you have two money receptors here, okay? You have the 30 and you have the 22. So let's zoom in there, okay? So when you have this center undefined, what you're selling is you're selling truth and you're selling also pleasure. Now, that doesn't have to be sexual. That can be about pleasure in business. What does it mean to have a business that feels good, right? Like there's a lot of different ways. Depending, this is where we work, let's say one-on-one, and I get to know what it is, and then we translate it for you. And I don't know your business right now, but this, take pleasure as like a general kind of code and then translate it for yourself. So the 30 is the money receptor of fantasy, also imagination. So what you're doing is you're selling people on their big vision. You're selling people on bringing them into their, biggest imagination of possibility. That's what the 30 is. The 30 is all about like desire, igniting that, bringing people into the possibilities. And then we've got the 22. The 22 is this openness, this social openness. So it's bringing people into, what does it mean? Like you're selling them on being more like collaborative and social and more open to things in life, because it's like, a lot of people can run around with closed minds, or with not really seeing, the forest from the trees. But when you have that 22, you've gone through that process yourself. So you're able to identify, okay, this person isn't seeing this. Let me bring them into that possibility. So the 22 and the 30 really interact together in that beautiful way. So how does that feel for you?
It's really interesting. I'm intrigued. I know we need to know further. It's like I'm all about, and when you said emotional intelligence, about that part, I was like, oh my gosh, that's actually one of my core offerings. Yeah, I know I'm an EI coach. It's very natural for me to just kind of flow into that. But yeah, I know, as like any assessment, these things definitely take a lot more time and deep dive. So I'll message you.
Yeah, exactly. And there's that incarnation cross I was telling everyone about, where 70% of your energy exists, right? So yours is contagion. So you're here to spread ideas and spread and share. Like, you're built for spreading and sharing. Like, it's especially because you're also a 3-5 pioneer messenger, right? So just wanted to show everybody that, because you might wonder where that is on your chart. So there's that profile, and there's that incarnation cross, which is that life work theme.
Thank you, Melissa. And thank you, Diana.
You.
Melissa, I have a question. How do you tell? Sometimes you tell me some folks are meant to do more B2C work versus B2B work, or more like larger stage versus into. How do you tell if someone's meant to do more that bigger stage B2B work versus like a intimate type of work?
Yeah. Okay. Sangeeta, may I still use your
I
chart?
actually thank you, Diana. That's one of the biggest things in my head. So maybe she just read my mind.
Ooh.
Okay, amazing. So, we go in BG5, and we look at this center here, okay? So you have this diamond defined. What that shows me is that you are designed for small group, but also at the same time, with that 15 activated, you don't necessarily like to be in the group all the time. It's like dip in, dip out. It's like, I need the group, then I need some alone time. I need the group, and then I need some alone time. And like, it's a really interesting process. So a lot of consultants in that B2B space that have this center defined, they can work really well with groups. And when you see that 15, it's showing me that it can be quite boring, perhaps, to stay in one particular group for a long time. So for you, it's like going to be energetically more in alignment to kind of move around different groups, right, that you might be consulting with. Now, when we look at large group strengths, we can see you've got some of those traits. So for example, you have the 51, which is a trait that has to do with large group competition. So this means, potentially you could work in the B2B space with consulting as it relates to the large group, right? So anything where there's 6 or more kind of people. And yes, also related to their capacity and competitive market, like these types of things. So now, when you have, for example, if I could show a projector chart, it would be great. Anybody who's a projector want to volunteer?
Dagmar is a projector, right? Dagmar, if she's still here, Dagmar or Alan is a projector. Let me see. Yeah, Alan's a projector.
Share.
Yeah.
Okay, who am I sharing?
That's me.
Oh, you got it up. Okay, great. Okay, amazing. So you can see with your mouse, if you can hover it over your energy function, which is that second square above the square on the bottom. So
This one here?
yes, the sacral, there you go. Okay, so this is what makes you a projector, right? This center is undefined, right? Now, because you're a projector, you're designed for one-on-one. So that means, you could work one-on-one in B2B or B2C. But if we're looking at B2B, what I'm looking at is, you see up there where I just showed you the 51 on Sangeeta. So up in that little triangle that's red.
Yes, the 51 as well.
So that area up there where she's got the 5125, okay, that's showing me that's a large group, a large business strength. So you could come in as this is an alpha projector. So Dagmar, you would be what would be called an alpha projector, because you have the 5125. So you're naturally designed to lead large consulting projects for large corporations. So you can work with, huge numbers of people, like in a consulting practice capacity. Now, the caveat here is that a lot of projectors can be taken in as this is like the running joke as well. It's like in a large group, the projectors can almost be like slaves to the large group if they're not careful, because you're not designed to work in a group. You're designed to be that person on the outside guiding the group rather than being in it and doing. You're more of a guiding and seeing. And so this would be leveraged in the B2B environment.
That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was insightful to hear because Dagmar does B2B work, and that's her background too in B2B training.
Exactly. I was afraid it would tell me that I'm not, but actually that naturally I knew that I made for that because I get lots of energy out of that. But then I feel like a balloon, you put a needle in after the work, I'm kind of like completely exhausted.
Yeah, exactly. Because what happens energetically is us projectors, when we're around all that sacral energy, all of that, all the people, the generators and the manifesting generators who have consistent access to their energy function, is that we're receiving that. We're kind of like taking it in. And if we're not careful, what will end up happening is we can amplify that. So a lot of projectors can run around acting like manifesting generators like times 10, because we take on that sacral energy and people are like, oh my God, you have so much energy. And then like you get out of the aura of all the energy types. And then finally you're by yourself and you're like, oh my God, I am exhausted. Right? Yeah.
I'm like that. After speaking to in front of hundreds of people, I need the rest of the day to myself.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. We have a question here about what's the difference between the colors, red, brown, or yellow?
Yeah, so I mean, there isn't really a difference between them. They they're so there's I would say like for our intents and purposes, there isn't really a difference between them. Yeah. Before I don't want to go into like advanced things.
Yeah. So I think there was a question around like what environment, like when people are looking at the chart, what environment means.
Oh, so this is a fun one. So your environment is related to where you're designed, where your body is designed to thrive. So some people will have shores or mountains or valleys or caves. And I know I'm missing one. But essentially, these are representative archetypes of where we're designed to thrive. So for example, I thrive in a mountains environment. What does that mean? It means that I'm designed naturally to have an elevated perspective. So I'm designed to have people come up the mountain to meet me. I'm not designed to go down and meet them where they're at. Now that's metaphorically. If we'll think about it physically, my body thrives when I'm in actually like an elevation, like a heightened elevation. So there's some people that love beach vacations. I love mountains. Like last year, I went to the Rocky Mountains. This year, on Tuesday, I'm going to be in the Italian Dolomites or Dolomites, the Italian Alps. Like, take me in the mountains. So similarly, yeah, kitchens, that's the other one. Thank you. So kitchens is metaphorical for really thriving in an environment where there's a lot going on, where you can kind of, the kitchens that have like the kitchen islands, right? Where you kind of can be there and you can be seeing kind of like all the things, like what's kind of happening. Oh yeah, that group over there, like, if you're hosting like a party in your kitchen, it's like you love to be able to have your pulse on what is happening, what's going on. Yeah. Oh, markets is great. That's someone who has markets. They're designed to be in environments where a lot of transactions are going on. They're designed to be in an environment where there's a lot of resources at their fingertips, where they can like pick things, that they need here and there, right? Markets people thrive in a transactional marketplace. Yeah.
Oh, that's helpful. I love that. I mean, this just tells me a lot about but at the end of the day, what makes you come alive? Everything that you're teaching here is what makes you come alive that feels easy and natural. I even like when you told me about our work theme, Like when you told me my work theme is love, and that really resonated with me, and it aligns with how I express myself through love, affirmations, encouragement. Like that's just naturally who I am, and that aligns with how I communicate through my content as well. I want it to be encouraging, motivating. I don't like it to be like very controversial type of content because that's not my how I like to express myself.
Yeah. No, exactly. Everything is about, again, that theme of love is that 70% of the energy in your chart, right? You are literally a vessel of love. Like this is what you bring. This is why you lead with heart, right? And so the more that you can dive into that, it's like oxygen for your body, and it's like play. And when we play, work doesn't feel like work. It feels like we're not working.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had two practical questions for the audience here for you to, if you could give some advice to the audience here is like, so for those who are just learning about human design, first of all, like how many of you learned something about yourself today or the human design here? Like just type in that +1 here. For those who are starting out, what's the most powerful way to start integrating this into their business? What are some starting points? What can they follow?
Yeah. So that 70% of your energy, that's your life work theme. So, there are 189 different life work themes. And so we didn't talk about those, but if you want to do some self-study, right, that would be really great. Or you can reach out to me because ChatGPT does make a lot of mistakes. Now, with what I gave you here today, within that, I mentioned the profile, right? So you can really leverage that in your marketing and in your messaging, right? The more you can double down on that, which is exactly what Diana did, right? She's always talking about that. That's what her posts have been about the last couple of days, on really doubling down on that 4th line signature, like that profile number. She's a 4-6. So knowing both of your profile numbers, right? Especially that first one. So for Diana, it's a 4-6. So whatever that number is on your chart, I'm looking at so many of your charts here, right? That first number that's there for you, that's the one you're going to really want to pay attention to. Yeah. The second one's also great. We can leverage that too in different ways. But for our intents here and what will be most helpful to you, that first one.
Very
And so
helpful.
use that. Yes. So that number creates a through line for everything, not only for your marketing and your messaging, but you can utilize it in your offers as well, and also in your business model.
I love that. So as an example, you're saying like for those of you that have the 4th line, like me, that's my line, is connector, networker, right? So for me, how I've doubled down on this past year is making an effort to send voice notes to people, inviting people to events, joining me for mastermind retreat days. So really make an effort to do that, connect with people there. So that's how I really doubled down the 4th line there. So I love that practical advice is just like really look at what's your primary line and doubling down on that. The other thing I would add to this is audit your schedule for energy. What drains you, what makes you come alive. Look at things where it feels forced in your business that just feels like it's just really hard to do. That's something to check out as well. Yeah, I audit my energy and time like every quarter as well.
Yeah, making sure, like we talked about in the very beginning, your signature for alignment, right? If you're a generator or a manifesting generator, is that you're feeling satisfaction, right? If you're starting to feel a lot of frustration with your business, that's a key indicator that you're out of alignment. For a projector, the key indicator is feeling bitterness and burnout, right? The same thing we were talking about with the manifestor. That indicator would be anger, just like anger, just like why aren't people getting me, or like whatever it is. And with the reflector, it's just that feeling of like disappointment, like life is just so disappointing right now. So any of those are really great signposts for you to have awareness around, like, something's not in alignment here. And then you get to do the digging.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And then my last question here is like, what's one final piece of advice you would offer to the coaches here who want to grow their income in a more aligned and easeful way?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would say really that get to know yourself, like really get to know yourself, because all the voices and all the other like people that are out there that are telling you do it this way or do it that way, like you are like I said, you're a once in a lifetime cosmic event. Like that is your chart. Okay. And so you have like this God-given like, right to, show up as you. And so the more that you can do that, the right people will find you, right? Because there's resonance that's there. So if you're attracting in the wrong clients, that's like a signpost of like, okay, something about my frequency or what I'm communicating is not, not aligned, right? And so this is where I say, that final piece of advice is really just having that awareness of, okay, who am I attracting in right now? And is this working for me? Right? Like aside from the money piece, it's like, is this really who I want to work with? Is it at the end of the day, am I feeling satisfaction? Am I feeling success? Right? If you're a projector, if you're a manifesting generator or generator, are you feeling satisfaction? If you are a manifestor, are you feeling at peace? Right? Like just peace in your business. Like, oh yeah. And then if you're a reflector, feeling surprised, like, oh my God, so much delight coming in, right? So that would be my final piece of advice is really watch for those moments when you have the key indicator of like what is in alignment and then double down on that.
I love it. Thank you so much for such an insightful session today, Melissa. Let's give her some love and emojis here. Thank you so much. Today was such a great reminder for all of us that you can really trust and lean into your human design because we're all unique and we're built in a way that you can really to honor yourself and how you're meant to serve. So whether you're a projector like me, a generator here to build for mastery, a manifestor here to initiate, or a reflector learning to honor your pace, you now have that language and insight and tools to start attracting clients and creating the income with more clarity and flow. So what I would love to encourage you to do is to really take time to reflect, like really what resonated most with you today? What did you feel in your body as truth? And from an action item standpoint, going back to what Melissa just suggested, is what's one aligned action you can take this week? What's one aligned action, whether it's in your content, in your sales, or your client delivery that fits with your energetic blueprint? And most importantly, don't let just this stay as inspiration. Like turn it into aligned momentum. Like that's exactly what I did last year. That I decided to make human design as part of my business growth strategy, and it was so fascinating as I was preparing for this session with you last night, Melissa. I was looking back at what I wrote 8 months ago as my blueprint or strategy for this year, and I was looking at it like I stay true to all these things to launch a coaches and business community, to run monthly coaches and business event, run in-person mastermind retreat days, host masterminds like in Cancun, like really just leaning into that. And even though I've done like over 30 events, I feel like it's just been so aligned and energized to me. Like I don't feel burnt out at all. So that's something why I feel like so powerful when you can really lean into that. It just feels more exciting and fulfilling for you there. So Melissa, before we wrap, if someone wants to go deeper, learn more about their chart or explore ways to work with you, how can they connect or stay in touch?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, of course, and LinkedIn, right? With my name, Melissa Leithwood. And then I also have, I'm going to pop it in the chat here. I have what would be a connection call. You can always, it's a 20-minute, just like connect in if something here was sparked for you or you have a curiosity you wish to explore, where you want to like talk about it more one-on-one, then you're welcome to do that. So I put my link, my Tidy Cow link in there. I'm away for 3 weeks because I'm off to Europe on Tuesday.
Resting.
Resting, exactly. But then I'm back. And so if you are booking in, I really encourage you to do so because there's a lot that we can kind of, talk about one-on-one that may be supportive and helpful. And I'll be way, way, way rested when I get back. So you'll get the best of me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're resting, right? Our mantra is the more time off I take, the more money we make
That's it.
as projectors. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. Thank you for your presence and to also openly share your human design type with us. And I look forward to seeing you again all soon. Until then, stay aligned, stay magnetic, and stay you. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.